All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Anyone who follows combat sports, especially MMA, knows analysis isn't always objective. It gets pretty tribal.
Oh, yeah. Emotional, definitely. Sometimes it just feels like straight up denial.
Exactly. And today, we've got a stack of sources tackling one of the hottest, most, well, volatile narratives right now. The run Ilia Topuria is on.
Mm-hmm. And the big narrative you hear everywhere, social media commentary booths, is that, oh, Topuria only looks as good because he's fighting old guys, washed fighters.
Guys, at the end of their careers, it's the classic way to downplay someone's dominance, right?
The ultimate asterisk.
And that's exactly what these sources, sent in by a listener, are going right after. So our mission today is to unpack this counter-argument fight by fight.
Yeah, the author here is pretty blunt. Says this dismissal is just fans coping because Topuria keeps knocking out their heroes.
And they argue his wins aren't fading, they're aging like a fine Spanish wine. I like that.
It's a great line. And the core idea is super provocative. It's not that the opponents are suddenly washed up.
Okay.
It's that Topuria and maybe Islam Makhachev in the division above, they are just better. Simple as that.
So we're digging into the evidence presented. Let's see if this denial theory actually holds water.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Exhibit A has to be Alexander Volkanovski. Vog. A legend, still is. But when Topuria beat him, boom, the wash label hit immediately.
Yeah, and you can see why people jump there, at least on the surface. Remember the timing.
Oh, yeah. Islam knocks him out first round. Brutal.
Then, not long after, he fights Topuria and gets knocked out again.
2 KOs, back-to-back. Visually, that looks bad. It looks like a fighter hitting the wall.
Exactly. So concluding old Vog, washed Vog, it seemed almost logical at the time.
But hang on, isn't it fair to say 2 KOs like that would affect someone? Couldn't the worry about his state be, somewhat justified then?
Oh, absolutely. The worry itself makes sense. That's why what happened next is so crucial to this argument.
Okay.
The counterproof. Vog's very next fight, he steps in against Diego Lopez, a really dangerous guy.
Yeah. And everyone thought Lopez would finish him again, right? Because of the 2 KOs?
Yeah.
Too soon.
That was the consensus, yeah. Too soon. Likely another KO loss. But Vog goes out there.
And reclaims his belt. Wins the decision.
Exactly. Won decisively. And the source material highlights this. They apparently called it before the Lopez fight, saying Vog was not washed.
Wow, okay.
So that win, right after those KOs, it just kind of demolishes the idea that he was physically shot when he fought Topuria.
Right. It forces you to look back at those losses differently.
Completely. If Vog could still perform at that level against Lopez, then maybe, just maybe, Islam and Topuria were simply better on those nights.
Not washed, just beaten by elite talent. That victory really changes the context of the Topuria win.
It does. It suggests the washed narrative for Vog was, well, maybe premature or just wrong.
Okay, so Vog's case sets the stage. But the Max Holloway situation? Holloway. That's where the source argues things get even wilder with the shifting goalposts.
Yeah, the Holloway fight was massive for Topuria. First person ever to knock Max out. Third round finish.
Huge statement. But the excuses started right away.
Instantly. First, it was old Max, the mileage.
Okay.
Second, it was the weight cut, that he was draining himself coming back down to featherweight after thinking about lightweight.
Right, though the source kind of bats that down, saying, look, these guys walk around heavy anyway. Holloway's maybe 160 out of camp. The cut's always hard.
Pretty much dismisses that excuse. But the real twist, the thing that makes this interesting, is what Holloway did next.
Against Dustin Poirier.
Yeah. Goes out and absolutely schools Poirier for 5 rounds, finishes him with that incredible knockout. Looked phenomenal.
Sure, here's the core question the source raises. If Max Holloway wasn't washed, and that Poirier win suggests he definitely wasn't,
still eat.
Then why did he lose to Topuria? How do you square that circle?
You can't, logically. Not if you want to be consistent. So what happened?
Let me guess. The wash label just transferred.
Bingo. As soon as Holloway dominated Poirier, suddenly the narrative shifted. It wasn't Max who was washed anymore. Oh, no. Now Poirier was washed.
Wow. But wait a minute. Wasn't that the same Dustin Poirier who had just given Islam Makhachev maybe his hardest title fight ever?
The very same. Took the lightweight champ deep into the 5th, landed a lot of good shots, really pushed him before getting submitted.
So he goes from giving the champ hell to being washed the second he loses to Holloway.
According to the narrative shift, yes. And the source points this out as, like, Exhibit A of fan coping. It looks desperate.
It does seem like reaching for any explanation other than crediting the guy who beat Holloway in the first place, Topuria.
If it's the pattern the source describes,
Yeah.
find an external reason, age, injury, weight cut, anything to explain the loss, rather than accept the winner's skill. The loser has to be diminished somehow.
Okay, let's move to the latest example then. Exhibit C, Charles Oliveira. His recent win over Mato's Gamro. Second round submission. Looked amazing.
Yeah, this one's interesting because the narrative gymnastics started before the fight.
Mm.
Well, before they fought, the chatter was that Charles was maybe ducking Gamrot. You know, because Gamrot's this high-level wrestler, supposedly a terrible matchup for Charles.
Right, people thought Gamrot's wrestling would be too much. There was real concern Charles might lose.
Genuine fear, yeah.
Yeah.
Then Charles goes in there.
Submits him in the second round. And the source says he made it look kind of easy, showed that submission wizardry.
Total mastery.
Yeah.
Went from potentially ducking to utterly dominant.
Yeah.
So what happens to the narrative then? Does he get credit?
Let me guess. No. What was the excuse this time?
It flipped instantly. The win was dismissed because Gamrot took the fight on short notice.
Ah, the short notice excuse.
Yep. Therefore, the conclusion became Charles is still washed. He can only beat guys who aren't fully prepared. The skill of the submission itself basically ignored.
That's quite a leap from he's scared of Gamrot's wrestling to, oh, he only won because Gamrot had less prep time.
It seems absurd when you lay it out like that, right?
Yeah.
The source argues it shows just how deep this resistance goes.
Right.
They're fighting the facts.
Tooth and nail, sounds like.
Because if you admit Vogue is still elite, Holloway's still elite, Oliveira's still elite, despite losing to Topuria or taking tough losses.
Then you're forced to confront the possibility that Topuria is just better than these elite guys.
Exactly. That he's operating on a different level right now. And that, according to this source, is the uncomfortable truth fans are trying desperately to avoid.
So if this pattern of denial, this resistance, is really happening across the board, what's the final verdict from the source on Topuria himself?
The verdict is pretty clear-cut. Topuria is the guy. Right now, the best fighter on the planet. Full stop.
And anyone disagreeing is just
Coping. Because he keeps taking out their favorites. But what's really striking is they don't just say that.
Okay.
They go further and actually predict the excuses that will be used for his future wins to show how predictable the denial machine is.
Whoa, okay. Like what? Give me an example.
All right, so if Topuria fights Justin Gaethje, say next year, the prediction is Topuria gets 0 credit.
0 credit. Why? Gaethje's a huge name.
Yeah, but the reasoning laid out is that Gaethje, by 2025, will be seen as a joke of a title defense. Because he got knocked out by Max, and his other big recent win was against Fizai on short notice.
Ah, so they'll preemptively diminish Gaethje before the fight even happens, just in case Topuria wins.
That's the argument. Minimize the opponent beforehand so the win doesn't count as much.
Okay, what about other contenders like Sarukian, Sakine, or Paddy Pimblett?
His excuse is ready to go, according to the source. For Sarukian, it'll be he was inactive, hasn't fought enough recently.
Okay.
For Pimblett, he's not even ranked top 5. So not a legitimate contender anyway. See the pattern? Always find a flaw in the opponent and never credit the winner.
Always an external factor. Got it. What's the ultimate prediction, though?
The biggest one revolves around a potential super fight. Topuria versus Islam Makhachev.
The dream fight.
Exactly. If Topuria beats Islam, the source predicts the excuse will be immediate, specific, and injury-related. Like, oh, Islam had a staph infection, or he fought with a broken collarbone, or a broken hand, something dramatic and unverifiable, basically.
That's pretty cynical. It suggests there's literally no way Topuria could get clean credit for beating a beloved champion like Islam. The denial is pre-baked.
Yeah, the argument is that it protects the legacy of the guy who lost, no matter what actually happened in the cage. It ensures the dominant newcomer never truly arrives.
And the source is so confident in this assessment of Topuria
That they're already talking about comparing him pound for pound skill-wise to John Jones, setting up that debate.
Wow, okay.
And their final message is just blunt, except that he's the guy. Stop making excuses.
So bringing this all back, this deep dive really shines a light on how hard it can be for fans, for maybe all of us, to just acknowledge pure, perhaps unexpected dominance.
Yeah, there seems to be this constant need for an out, an external reason, age, injury, bad camp, short notice something to explain away the loss so we don't have to admit the winner was simply superior that night.
And the evidence laid out here, fight by fight, makes a compelling case that Topurian's key opponents weren't actually washed. They proved their quality right after losing to them.
Demonstrably so, in most cases.
Yeah.
Which really strengthens the core argument.
So here's the final thought to leave you with, something to chew on. If this pattern holds true, If every fighter Topuria beats goes on to prove immediately after that they were not washed up, what does that really tell us about why we reach for the washed narrative? Is it truly analysis? Or is it more about protection?
Protection. How so?
Protecting the legacy of the fighter who lost. Or maybe even protecting our own predictions, our own idea of who should be on top. Is diminishing the winner just easier than admitting we were wrong, or that the guard is changing?
That's a heavy question. Something to definitely think about next time you watch a big upset or a dominant performance.
Indeed. Mull that over until next time on The Deep Dive.